Born in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, William Christenberry grew up in the American South, where old road signs, decaying buildings, and dusty roads shaped his childhood memories. Working in a wide variety of media, including painting, drawing, photography, sculpture, and assemblage, Christenberry became known for his artistic exploration of the psychology of place, particularly the Black Belt region of West Central Alabama. Initially focused on painting, Christenberry moved to New York City in 1961, where he met Walker Evans. Evans' renowned Farm Security Administration photographs of the Depression-era South, many of which were taken in Christenberry's Hale County, had a profound influence on him as an artist. Alongside William Eggleston, who is often credited with encouraging him to adopt color photography, Christenberry is celebrated as a pioneer of color photography as a fine art medium. Although Christenberry created a wide range of art, from photographs to drawings and sculptures, his experiences growing up in the South remain central to most of his work. This video explores Christenberry's deep connection to his Alabama roots, his use of color photography, and his profound influence on contemporary art. My Book Through the Lens. Inspiring Quotes from Master Photographers is now available for purchase. This book is a captivating and inspiring collection of insights, reflections, and wisdom from some of the most renowned photographers in history. Get your copy now. The link to purchase it on Amazon is available below in the description box. William Andrew Christenberry Jr. was born on November 5, 1936, in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, United States. His father, William, attempted to attend college but found it too expensive, so he spent his life working as a delivery man for a bakery and later as a salesman of dairy products and insurance. His mother, Ruby Willard Smith, was a tax assessor and homemaker who also created textiles that became treasured family heirlooms. Christenberry's grandparents on both sides operated farms in Hale County, where he spent his childhood summers. In 1944, Christenberry and his sister received a Brownie camera as a joint Christmas gift, a present that would remain significant throughout his career. He studied painting and sculpture at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa, earning a Bachelor of Fine Arts in 1958 and a Master of Fine Arts in 1959. Initially influenced by abstract expressionism and his studies under Melville Price, Christenberry later gravitated toward the realism associated with artists like Jasper Johns and Robert Rauschenberg. His artistic journey began with painting, specifically large, abstract expressionist canvases, but his focus and inspiration shifted to the places and memories of his childhood. After receiving his degrees, Christenberry stayed at the University of Alabama for a few years as a teacher. In 1961, he encountered James Agee and Walker Evans' book, Let Us Now Praise Famous Men, which deeply influenced his work, particularly his direct address photographs of Hale County, which he had been taking since 1958 with his 1944 Brownie camera. During his time at the University of Alabama, his teacher Melville Price encouraged him to leave Alabama temporarily to broaden his perspective. As a result, Christenberry moved to New York City in 1961. However, Christenberry only stayed in New York for 14 months before accepting a teaching job in Memphis. During his time in New York, he produced very little art, but upon moving to Memphis, his creativity flourished. In his early Memphis years, Christenberry painted large canvases, 2 yards by 4 yards, including Fruit Stand in 1963, Beale Street in 1964, and Claver 93 in 1964. In 1965, he met Sandy Dean, whom he married in 1967. Early in their relationship, they became close friends with William Eggleston and his wife, a bond that lasted throughout their lives. In 1968, the Christenberrys moved to Washington, D.C., where William accepted a teaching position at the Corcoran College of Art and Design. Shortly after starting his professorship, Christenberry began making annual summer visits to Hale County to visit family, explore, and take photographs. Initially, these photos were taken with the same Kodak Brownie camera he had received as a child, though he later switched to a large format view camera for greater detail. Despite this, he continued using the Brownie throughout his career. In 1973, Walker Evans, who had encouraged Christenberry to take his photography seriously, accompanied him on one of these visits, Evans's first and only return to Hale County since 1936. One of the outcomes of these pilgrimages was a series of photographs documenting the decay of individual buildings, capturing them as nearly isolated objects. In 1974, Christenberry began transforming some of these photograph structures into detailed sculptures that replicated their state of decay and aged appearance. Although meticulously crafted and proportioned, Christenberry did not consider these creations to be models, as they weren't based on precise measurements. He preferred them to be called sculptures. The bases of these sculptures were often set in soil collected from the locations themselves. On many of his trips, Christenberry also collected old advertising signs and found objects that inspired him. Some of these were incorporated into his work, while others hung in his studio. Unfortunately, in 2011, Christenberry was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. He passed away in Washington, D.C. on November 28, 2016, at the age of 80 due to complications from the disease. Although he is best known as a photographer and multimedia artist, Christenberry also taught painting. His work has been featured in solo and group exhibitions worldwide and is the subject of several monographs. This photograph presents a simple, yet visually compelling scene of a green warehouse in a rural setting. The composition is straightforward, almost symmetrical, as the warehouse occupies the center of the frame. The choice of an elevated and straight-on perspective emphasizes the structure's form and creates a sense of stability. The corrugated metal, worn with patches of age, gives the building a textured appearance, while the uniform green paint further enhances the overall unity in the photograph. From a compositional perspective, the use of geometry is key. The triangular roofline contrasts with the horizontal lines of the walls, creating a balance that draws the viewer's eye toward the center of the image. The green tones of the warehouse blend harmoniously with the grass and trees, but the slightly different shades of green create subtle layers of depth. The structure's simplicity is offset by the textures and imperfections of the metal, which invite the viewer to explore the details. This photograph encapsulates a strong sense of place, history, and time. The focal point of the image is a worn-down wooden structure, presumably a cafe, with a large Coca-Cola sign prominently displayed at the top, offering a nostalgic touch that immediately speaks to its time period. The photograph is rich in texture, with weathered wood, faded paint, and rough surfaces drawing attention to the structure's age and abandonment. These details contribute to the storytelling, making the building itself a character within the narrative. The composition is centered, allowing the building to dominate the frame, with minimal distractions in the background. This choice directs the viewer's full attention to the subject, the cafe. The front-facing perspective enhances the symmetry of the image, which is further emphasized by the building's horizontal lines, such as the roofline, porch, and the boards of the walls. The symmetry, however, is imperfect due to the decaying wood and collapsed elements, creating visual interest and a sense of authenticity. The color palette is subdued, consisting primarily of earthy tones, browns, greens, and grays, interspersed with pops of color from the Coca-Cola signage. The bright red of the sign contrasts sharply with the muted colors of the decaying building, drawing the viewer's eye upward and offering a point of contrast in an otherwise quiet and desaturated scene. The composition achieves balance, as the brighter, more colorful elements don't overwhelm the subdued structure, but rather complement it. This photograph immediately evokes a sense of nostalgia and rural decay. The composition is straightforward yet powerful, with the primary subjects, a worn-out blue car and a dilapidated house, taking center stage. The car is parked slightly off-center, leading the viewer's eye across the image from left to right. The house, with its peeling paint and rusted roof, provides a stark contrast to the bright, almost cheerful blue of the car. The image adheres to several classic principles. The rule of thirds is subtly applied, with the car occupying the lower portion of the frame and the house taking up the middle and upper sections. This division creates a balance between the human-made objects and the open sky in the background. The photographer captures a moment of stillness, where time seems to have paused, and both the car and the house serve as symbols of the past, now in a state of disrepair. The colors in the image are significant as well. The blue car stands out against the earthy tones of the house and the ground, drawing the viewer's attention immediately. Despite the damage and age visible on the car's body, its vibrant color suggests a history of care and utility. The rusty roof and the weathered wood of the house further emphasize the passage of time and the wear that these objects have endured. Additionally, the texture in the image is worth noting. The rough surface of the car, with its dents and rust spots, mirrors the rugged texture of the house's wooden exterior. Together, these elements create a cohesive visual narrative about rural life in the American South during the mid-20th century. William Christenberry's life and work were deeply intertwined with Hale County, Alabama. This small, often overlooked corner of the Deep South was not just his birthplace. It was the heart and soul of his artistic expression. Few American artists are so closely linked to a single place as Christenberry was to this patch of land, which he spent more than 50 years photographing, painting, and reflecting upon. To Christenberry, this land wasn't just a subject. It was a living, breathing part of his story. Hale County was a place rich in contradictions, beauty, and hardship. It was one of the poorest areas in Alabama, and during the Great Depression, its desolation was famously captured by Walker Evans in his portraits of the Burroughs family. While Evans approached this southern landscape as an empathetic visitor from New York, Christenberry returned to it time and again, not as an outsider, but as a native son. This land, with all its complexities, represented both the home he longed for and the place he had to leave behind. Everything I want to say through my work comes out of my feelings about that place. Its positive and its negative aspects, Christenberry once said. His art, in all its forms, was a meditation on this deep, often ambivalent connection. Walker Evans, who would later become a mentor and lifelong influence, once observed young Christenberry taking photographs in Hale County with a simple Kodak Brownie camera. "You know exactly where to stand with that little camera," Evans remarked. In those words, he recognized not just Christenberry's instinctive eye for composition, but his profound understanding of this place, a place they both had photographed. Christenberry's work, though often born from the same locations, was never a repetition. It was a continuation, a personal evolution of the Southern narrative that Evans had begun decades before. In a creative lineage that includes Evans and fellow Southern photographer William Eggleston, Christenberry stands as one of the most important visual storytellers of the American South. His artistic sensibilities were shaped by not just the landscapes he photographed, but also the words of Southern literary giants like William Faulkner and Eudora Welty. Their stories of the South's struggles and beauty resonated with Christenberry's own journey as an artist. One of the most striking aspects of Christenberry's work is how it evolved over time without ever losing its core. Though he later transitioned to more advanced photographic equipment, even creating sculptural pieces inspired by his photographs, the essence of his work remained unchanged. It always came back to Hale County, to that connection between memory and place. He captured the rural South not with nostalgia, but with a quiet reverence, a recognition of both its light and its shadows. William Christenberry didn't just capture the South, he helped define it for future generations. His work is a reminder that art has the power to not only document a place, but to create a dialogue with it, to explore its complexities, and to invite us to reflect on our own connections to the places that shape us. In the end, Christenberry's legacy is one of deep reflection, an enduring testament to how an artist can turn the familiar into the profound, the personal into the universal.